1 minute to go.
Yes, we are live now.
With warm greetings, I extend my warmest welcome to the talk show Education 4.0 for Safe, Sustainable Societies.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the talk show organized by Samurja Educational Society on the theme Education 4.0 for Safe, Sustainable Societies. Starting from its inception in 1991, Samurja Society is collaborating with the schools, upskilling, inspiring, and motivating school leaders, teachers, parents, keeping learners at the center of all educational activities. The society did not overlook the vulnerable section of the society and supported them under the project The Girl Next Door in the Charity Wall. The journey of 3 decades has been gratifying with the blessings of Almighty and the mentorship of Madam Daljit Kaur, Shri Vaipi Purang, and late Shri Suraj Prakash Sir. We express our gratitude to them. I understand that it has been repetitively over and again in these talk shows, but we wish to retain and freeze the culture of gratitude in the middle of so many changing beliefs, notions, principles in almost every domain of our life. We are indebted to the inspirational leaders, Dr. Ashok Pandey and Dr. Rajesh Asija, for their absolute support to Samurja. They are the architects and the pioneers of this talk show, Education 4.0. In this cohort 2 of this talk show, we are actually trying to figure out how to make our school future-proofs, new learning trends, new realities, and how to adapt those new realities. We have discussed these in our previous talk shows. Presently, we are clueless what will we do tomorrow if tomorrow a new mutant of corona, alpha, beta, gamma, or omega is diagnosed. But we cannot stop our preparations to deal with these challenging situations, or discovering new vaccine for new variant, or setting protocols, procedures, and precautions. Similarly, as an educator, we need to continuously explore to make learning effective and joyful. A very interesting yet convincing pattern emerged out of the deliberation with our experts, which I would like to share. After reading enough about Rajkumari Ratna Devi Girls' School in the middle of Thar Desert at a distance of little distance of Jaisalmer to empower girls, we thought and expected a little more advanced technology in developing infrastructure, ensuring principles of sustainability with high-tech teachers and new technology like AR, VR, MR in the future-proof schools. But the deliberations converged differently. The emphasis was on life skills, higher cognitive skills, strong value system, teacher empowerment, community engagement, international collaboration, dominated over the advanced infrastructure and advanced technology. The new trends highlighted WWW learning, whatever, whenever, wherever, personalized learning, competency-based learning, 360-degree feedback and assessment. The new learning outcome emphasized students' own learning, self-awareness, self-exploration, and self-transformation. And that is what Gurudev Tagore said, the real purpose of education is self-realization, where he has mentioned 9 stages of self-realization, which includes all these above learning outcomes. Professor Pant shared the new realities as 3 A's: excavation, abundance, as automation. He also shared that we are living in the slowest changing phase of this century. I wonder, if this is the slowest pace, then what will be the fast pace? Dr. Pandey continuously reminds us that half-life of the present skills is less than 5 years. Means we do not have the choice then to evolve uninterruptedly, exploring a blended series from Vedas to Gita, from Tagore to technology, and from Tenali Rama to TikTok. The topic for today's episode is blended modalities. Blended learning is not using technology or a device or joining a tutorial program like IXL, Adapted Mind, or Khan Academy. Is blended learning the blend of face-to-face and online learning? And when we talk about online learning, is the online learning the blend of synchronous and asynchronous? And when I talk about synchronous learning but using face-to-face method, or synchronous learning with new pedagogical structure. To know all these, we have with us two dynamic, versatile young ladies, school principals with the phenomenal leadership qualities, Mrs. Geeta Gangwani, Principal Bal Bharti Public School, Rohini. Geeta ma'am, please extend the verbal greeting so that our participants, they can see.
Thank you, Mukta ma'am, and good afternoon to everyone on board, and looking forward to an enriching session for mutual learning. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thanks.
The other dynamic principal we have Mrs. Geeta Sanghvi, Principal, CNM School, Mumbai. Welcome, Kavita ma'am. Kavita ma'am, please extend a verbal greeting.
Yes, so thank you so much, and it's a pleasure being here, and gratitude to the entire team for having me over.
Thank you so much, and welcome again. I request Monica ma'am to please welcome our guest with a musical note. Welcome both of you. And thank you, Kriti and Monica, for making this presentation. Really impressive. So I need not say anything. Without further delay, let us start with the show. So as I conveyed, the blended learning word is being used loosely. The people, they are not clear what blended learning is. I'll request Geeta ma'am to please throw some light on blended learning and also share whether this term, has picked up momentum during Corona. Is it the new term, or when it was initiated? What is the background? Over to Geeta ma'am, please.
Thank you once again, Team Samurja. Special thanks to and gratitude to Ashok sir and Mukta ma'am. And thank you, lovely ladies, Team Samurja, for a very warm welcome. I never shared those pictures. I think you got them from the net. Oh, what an effort. Thank you so much. Mukta ma'am and dear panelists and all the attendees, we all will agree that we are going through unprecedented challenging times due to COVID-19 pandemic, when the school buildings are shut. But the good thing is that the schools are on. And it's hats off to the community of educators who proactively switched on to the virtual mode of teaching. Overnight, I would say, actually. And ever since then, we have been hearing that online teaching is the new normal and blended learning is the future. I mean, this has actually become a quote, you go to any webinar, any session, you hear this standard line, online teaching is the new normal, blended learning is the future. But the big question is, what is to be blended, how and why? So I used to always wonder, what is to be blended, how and why? And the little study that I did, whenever I got free time is what I'm going to share with you. And I'm sure each one of you probably have new dimensions to add to what I have to say. But whatever little I have, I would like to share that. Before that, I want to share this one line. Wasn't life easier when apple and blueberry were just fruits? So that's just a joke, jokes apart. The term blended learning, we are talking about it in India since March 2020, after the lockdown, right? It's become a buzzword. However, the term blended learning was coined as early as 1990. And in 2003, the American Society for Training and Development identified blended learning as one of the top 10 trends to emerge in the knowledge delivery industry. That was 2003. And today we are in 2021. So for the world around, it is not a new term, though maybe, in India, this has become a buzzword just now. So blended learning is a part of ongoing convergence of the two archetypal learning environments. We all know on one hand, we have the traditional face-to-face teaching learning environment that has been around for years. We all have grown up in that face-to-face learning environment. And on the other hand, we have the distributed learning environments that have begun to grow and expand in exponential ways as new technologies have expanded the possibility for distributed communication and interaction. So in the past, these two archetypal environments have remained largely separate from each other. And that was primarily because they used to address different media, different methodologies, different combinations. And actually, in fact, the audience to which they used these two types were catering were also very, very separate from each other. For example, the traditional face-to-face was typically, catering to a teacher-directed environment with person-to-person interaction in a live synchronous mode, high fidelity environment. And we all have grown up in that environment, and till March 2020, before that, that was the predominant way of teaching learning. On the other hand, we also had of late certain distant learning systems, which were actually, the beauty was the self-paced learning and asynchronous low fidelity environments. But now we see the convergence coming together of these two diverse systems. But this blended learning, is a very broad term, it's an umbrella term. And there are many definitions which are found. If you go to Google search, it talks about blending of everything, blending of activities, blending at course level, blending at program level, blending at institutional level. But two definitions which have been, very popular and they have been most frequently used, I'll cite those two. One is Garrison and Kanuka in 2004, who defined blended learning as the thoughtful integration of classroom face-to-face learning experiences with online learning experiences. And then the second definition came from Graham in 2006, who defined blended learning as blended learning systems combine face-to-face instruction with computer-mediated instruction. So one thing is very clear, that there's an agreement that the key ingredients of blended learning are face-to-face and online instruction or learning. There's slight difference between these two definitions, which I found, while the second definition is more inclusive because it says it's a combination. I found the first definition as having a quality dimension because it is saying that there is a thoughtful integration. So blended learning, I would say in a nutshell, is a combination of offline and online learning in a way that one complements the other. And the power of blended learning lies in its ability to improve student experiences. Research has shown that students which follow or which are given blended learning, there is reduced failure rate, improvised learning, and greater engagement. Rather than saying what is blended learning, Mukta ma'am, I would rather take you through what is not blended learning. So that's easier to comprehend for everybody. So blended learning is not a completely online course. So if you talk about any MOOCs, it is not blended learning. Blended learning is not a lecture that is broadcast online. That's not blended learning. It is also not any course that changes, simply swaps analog tools for digital tools. That's not blended learning. It is not the simple duplicity of course content in varying formats, but it is the working together of face-to-face and online elements to create richer experiences for students. And blended learning is seen as providing more opportunities for student-teacher interaction, increased student engagement in learning, adding flexibility in the teaching and learning environment, and opportunities for continuous development. And this is what exactly is also the focus of our National Education Policy 2020. So blended learning would be a good tool to actually meet and implement NEP 2020 also. However, a word of caution. The caution is to strike the right balance between the two and to be mindful of both the traditional content as well as the online, and to work with different blended content models. I'm sure during the session we'll come up with the various models of blended learning also. Given an opportunity, Mukta ma'am, allow me to also refer to a research paper which is titled Blended Learning, a Focus Study on Asia. And this research was done in Australia. I'm not taking the names of the authors because the names are a bit too complex to pronounce. So this research paper talks about e-readiness. Now, what is this e-readiness? This e-readiness is defined as a measure of the quality of a country's information and communication technology infrastructure and the ability of its consumers, businesses, and governments to use ICT for its benefit. And the research study included 4 countries: Korea, Japan, China, and Singapore. I would take permission for a poll here from the audience. So can we please have the poll? The poll is pertaining to the e-readiness. So which of the following countries do you think ranked the highest in the e-readiness in the survey conducted by the Economist Intelligence Unit EIU in 2008? Korea, Japan, China, Singapore. Which is the highest ranked country?
Ma'am, we are leading with Singapore right now with
Yeah, I can
58%.
see. I was expecting that, and I was expecting people to write Japan. When I read the research paper, I was also expecting Singapore, because Singapore is well known for the quality education that the country imparts to its learners. So, but the results,
Show the result on the screen, Monica.
yeah, it's visible to me. I can see that Singapore is 64% as of now, followed by Japan and Korea, which is 16% each. So, dear participants, you will be as surprised as I was when I read the research paper. There were total. Should I go ahead, ma'am? Let's end
Yes,
the
yes,
poll.
please,
Yeah,
ma'am.
because most of you can remove the poll. So you know, as expected, 64%, the highest goes to Singapore. There were total 70 countries in this particular study, and the China ranked the lowest at 66th out of these 4 countries. Japan ranked 23rd. Singapore ranked 6th, but Korea ranked 5th. So the highest rank went to Korea. And I studied this paper and I thought I'll present just 2-3 points from this paper. One set of challenges that China faced that was interesting, and I thought that was very relevant because we in India have just started our journey, right? So when we have started our journey, it is very informative and information, so that we at our level and our policy makers too take note of the challenges faced by the other countries and learn from those challenges, and that's how we learn from each other. So let us first talk about China. Why did it fail in China? In India, when we talk about blended learning, you know, the first thing that we have been talking, and it is true also to a large extent, that is that we don't have devices, we don't have softwares, we don't have bandwidth, we don't have internet, and that is very much true, especially for the rural parts of the country. But surprisingly, China did not have any of these problems. Still, blended learning failed in China, and primarily there were 3 reasons given for it. The first reason, and I don't know, I found it very relevant and worth sharing. The first reason was that the senior educators and educational administrators, they had little incentive to change their teaching styles. And unless the educators themselves are convinced of the pedagogical benefits of blended learning, providing IT hardware and software and access to the internet will not do much. That is what the study proved. The second main challenge that they listed for the failure was that blended learning, you know, was though well received by students also, but educational institutes and staff lacked the appropriate knowledge for developing courses that could tap the full potential of blended learning. And the third was, as expected, the education system was examination driven and teacher centered. So 3 things in nutshell was the attitude of teachers, the competency of teachers, and high stake assessment, which was primarily the assessment of learning rather than assessment for learning and as learning. So they concluded that the dominance of traditional teaching methods in China is unlikely to present conditions for mainstreaming e-learning in the near future. So unless the attitude, competency, and this assessment system is changed along with the pedagogy, things will not work. And for Singapore, what went well for Singapore, and what are the best practices that we can adopt? A few of them. Classroom lectures in Singapore were video recorded and archived for students to access anytime and anywhere. And this was based on the premise that computer-based lessons, which include a strong human element, human voice or facial expressions, tend to be better received by learners.
Right.
Secondly, there was web participative tools to enable knowledge learning. These were incorporated. Peer evaluation tool was introduced in blended learning in 2007 in Singapore. That worked very well. And then there were easy access to downloading of course material, discussion forums, assignment repositories, video webcasting, chat rooms. Everything was made available 24/7 with so much of ease. And lastly, what very important what I found was the students were able to link up with their classmates and with their teachers instantly for discussion and exchange of ideas. So that personalized touch, which is normally missing in blended learning, was actually taken care of, that you have a quick connect to everybody. So the paper also says that the failure of blended learning, wherever it failed, was majorly due to lack of two-way communication, lack of depth in content, lack of fun in competition, and absence of feedback. So these are the 4 parameters. Thus, what I would say, ma'am, to conclude is that for blended learning to add value to teaching learning process, it needs to be wisely embedded in all aspects of teaching learning process and needs to be embraced by all.
Absolutely.
All means all, right from the principal to the management, to the teaching staff, to the non-teaching staff, the parent community, along with students, and the various aspects. It has to be embraced in totality. So one has to look into not only pedagogy and assessment, which are the 2 major components, but other areas like feedback, very important, collaboration, very important, remediation, very important. So blended learning has to creep in all these aspects of the teaching learning process. So I think this is what I wanted to share with you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You have actually, explained in so much of the detail with the case studies and the research papers. Thank you so much, Geeta ma'am. I think all the clouds are clear now. As you shared, even I wasn't aware of so much of the details of it. As you shared that in 1990, this term was coined, right? So 1990 till 2020, 30 years. I'll ask Kavita ma'am. Kavita ma'am, please share the different types of blended learnings. And have we added some of the types during this corona or this global pandemic, or they were already there? So over to Kavita ma'am.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you that it was a pleasure listening to Geeta. I mean, you really gave us a lot of knowledge. And blended learning is definitely has been there, but every school has been doing it in their own system, their own ways. So I would like to share the presentation. If I can have the presentation shared, please.
Yes, please.
So I'm going to go with the first. Exactly, there are basically around thousands of styles of blended learning, but we're going to stick to few right now. So if you go to the next one, we're going to go into a station rotation blended learning. Now, what does station rotation blended learning mean? It means in a particular subject, the students are moving on a schedule depending upon the teachers. So for example, if the teacher is teaching mathematics, she's teaching algebra. She first has a teacher-led instruction in the class where she instructs all the students. Then she has a quick question. Based on that, she divides one group to go on to online instruction where they have access to the computers in the classroom itself. So students have gone now to further study the chapter of algebra on their own. A third group she makes where the students are maybe solving a worksheet on algebra. So that becomes a collaborative activity and station. So within the classroom, you have 3 stations going on. And the third station is where students who've got difficulties or want to ask further questions to the teachers, that is teacher-led instruction. So that is a station rotation blended learning happening within the school. If you go to the next one, this is another example of station rotation chart where you can have this kind of timings given across. Say 9 to 9:30, one is across computer, then teacher-led, and then collaborative. The next one. Then you have a lab rotation blended learning. Now, what is the difference here? The thing is out here, instead of having all the 3 stations within the classroom, you have 2 stations in the classroom and one group is sent to the laboratory. So in that case, the classroom has more space for the students to move around. So if the teacher has taught the subject and she feels the students have done well enough, she sends them independently to the computer lab to further progress on their own on the respective chapter. So that is the only difference between station and lab rotation blended learning. If you go for the next one, remote blended learning, or we call it as enriched virtual blended learning. So it is like a case like many PhD courses, they will have mandatory 1 month face-to-face learning with the guide. And then the remote learning you do yourself. So it could be maybe I have to go for a fixed instruction, fixed class, and then the teacher gives me a lot of projects and casework and all this to be done, which I do it remotely from home, which is away from the teacher. The next one. Then we have the flex blended learning. So here, most of the content is given in an entirely classroom, but there's no fixed schedules as such. So both the teacher and the student attend school with every student in the classroom having access to a computer. So it's like, I come to a class, maybe I come at 8 o'clock, you come at 8:30. I enter, I sit down on my computer. My teacher has done my videos. She's given her videos. The task is on the computers. I do everything. I finish at 12 o'clock. I go back home. Somebody finishes at 11 o'clock. They go back home. So it is that way. It's very flexible, blended learning. So this helps a lot for individualization. Yes, the next one. I think this is something which is very, very common. That is a flipped classroom, where you normally tell students that if I'm teaching you, say, Egyptian civilization, and I'm talking about, say, the town planning of Egyptian civilization, and I share a lot of videos with you, and I say, go through the videos and then come back to class, and we're going to then have discussions, or maybe some practice sessions, or some debates, or maybe a project. So I give something for them to do at home, and then they come back to class, and then I take it from there. So that is called a blended learning, a flipped classroom, which most of people have been using. Then we have something called as individual rotation blended learning. Now, in this case, it allows students to rotate through different kinds of classrooms called stations. Now, let me give an example. Now, Maya is taking an English physical class at 8 o'clock. Then she works on assignments at her own house. In the evening, after going through all of this, she takes a Zoom class with her teacher for further guidance. Now, what happens here is they have to ensure that they are taking classes through a tracking process that monitors assessment and engagement. So you have to book your classes with your teacher for your webinar. The physical classes are definitely whatever fixed timing the teacher has given. So it is on individual rotation blended learning. So it really helps people who are working people. The next one, project-based blended learning. Now, obviously, this is what we've been doing right now. So we're using both online and self-directed access and face-to-face instructions, everything for creating projects. So I have, maybe if I am talking about any project, my teacher orients to me face-to-face. Then maybe I go through a course or a learning app to stand up more about it. Maybe a climate action. I want to go and study climate action much more. I take a course on climate action. I read a lot of things, and then I finally collaborate and come back and give a final project. So that is the project-based blending learning. Then we have self-directed blending learning. And this means I use a combination of online and face-to-face learning to ensure that I have understood what I want to go ahead with. So it is here it is more on the self itself, where I set the goal, I plan, learn, and I reflect on my respective things. Now, inside out and outside in blended learning. So there are two different components. Now, when you talk of inside out, it means that the experiences will start within the class, but they will end outside the class. So inside out, maybe the teacher wants to talk about wild and domestic animals, and she starts talking to students in class and orients them to the wild and domestic animals. Then she gives them at home a movie to watch on wild and domestic animals. And then based on that, they finish a worksheet. That is inside out. Now, outside in, where maybe I begin my lesson from a digital background. See, I watch the movie first, and then I come inside and I finished my entire task inside the classroom. So this is again similar to quite the things which we've had before, but you call it inside out and outside in. So these are certain examples of how you can have an inside out and outside in. The second one talks about how you had actually had a field trip outside, and then you come back to the class and you talk about the composting, the field trip, the growing of grains, all these things. And the inside out, where you have a teacher talking about it and doing a group activity, and then they go outside and complete it. Then you have mastery-based blended learning, where actually you develop a mastery over your content. So you will go between offline and online till you've completed a complete mastery, and you completely all the time giving an assessment and practicing to ensure that you've reached that respective targets. So I think with the mastery, I think that was the end of it. So these are the different kinds of blended learning, and all of this are basically, it works as per the age, the drive, the kind of resources available in the school, and that's how you offer this type of blended learning.
Wow, it's great. I mean, initially you said that there are thousands of types of blended learning. And the moment you progressed, it's really, I mean, some of them we are doing it, right? But terminology, we are not aware. And initially, when I was a student, it was that we go to the library in the library period. But now I think almost every school, every class has a library or the reading corner or the library corner or whatever name they have. So what I can foresee, the first thing which you said, the station rotation, I have seen in the countries like UK and Australia, and this is quite possible. I mean, if we think that maybe 2 years back we were not visualizing it, but today I think it's possible. uh, Lab rotation you mentioned, we are already doing with reference to dividing the students for chemistry lab and the bio lab. Half of the students, they go to the chemistry lab and bio. So I was actually, thinking that before this session, that in blended learning, what percentage of online, what percentage of face to face, and different. So the types of blended learning, you have actually made it clear. The ultimate objective is the child's learning and making the learning joyful, understanding the child's learning slope and the other domains which you have mentioned. Thank you, Kavita. Thank you so much for giving us these details. I think all the teachers, the educators, those who are attending it, they can actually, these are 10, and we can always explore more. I remember when Howard Gardner came to India, and I attended the session in Talkatoora Stadium, and he said that these are the 8 types of multiple intelligences which I have identified. India being such a wide country with so much of the different cultures, you Indians can actually explore more kind of multiple intelligences. Don't stick to 8. So I was thinking that something, something constant will come to me. No, blended learning means we can always blend as
You
per
can
the
always
requirement.
really keep on coming up with new things all the time. Just a mix of online and face to face.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, Geeta ma'am, I'll again come back to you. Kavita ma'am has shared the types of blended learning, some of the types. As she shared, there are thousands of types of blended learning. We want to know some of the blended learnings which we can actually use in Indian context, because you have already worked as a practitioner at grassroots level. I remember your research with British Council, or your national award was on the pedagogical structures. So we would like to know some of the pedagogical structures for this blended learning. Over to you, Geeta ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mukta ma'am. And before I answer your question, try to answer your question, I'll say I envy you, because you met Gardner sir. And you said you had a chance to meet him, and he talked about the 8 types of intelligences. And of course, in the Indian context, we had the 9th one, which is very popular, the existential intelligence, where we keep looking for where have we come from, what is the larger picture. So I really envy you for that. And Mukta ma'am, actually, when we talk about blended learning and we talk about pedagogical innovation, as you have told me to talk about, I will just say that pedagogical innovation is something that we should be very mindful of, especially after the National Education Policy 2020 coming in. A lot is being talked about the way we need to convert our traditional classrooms into engaging classrooms. And somewhere down the lane, we really need to work very hard in changing the classroom scenario, which is still teacher dominant. And I'm not talking about progressive schools whose principals or educators are here. If you look at Pan India, especially the rural areas, the picture is that the teacher is there on the stage, dictating, spoon feeding, and students are passive listeners. So it is high time that we need to change this, and technology and blended learning can actually help us in changing this scenario. This is a powerful tool which can bring the children back to the class. And the term that we are talking about, student engagement. I think this is one term that I've heard, I think the maximum number of times in the last 1 year, student engagement. So if that student engagement is to be brought into pedagogy, and if the onus of learning is to be on the child, then I think blended learning is the way forward. And NEP talks about many pedagogical innovations. We have art integration, we have sports integration, we have integrated projects. Of course, we are doing PBL and all. And also there is a lot of emphasis on theater and education. But there is an equal emphasis on ICT-driven pedagogy. And this is the topic that is there for today. So when we talk about blended teaching learning, it is an environment enriched with ICT tools, a pedagogy that is driven by ICT. There are so many teachers today, quite a large number must have joined on Facebook also. From my school itself, I think see more than 30 teachers. So dear participants, dear teachers, what do you think is the impact, direct impact of teachers on classroom teaching and on the learning outcomes of the students? We as teachers standing in the classroom, delivering, engaging children, plus the students interact with each other. There's so much of text material, online resources, social interaction, their own zeal to work. So what is the impact of the teacher on the student outcomes? Can we have a quick poll on that, ma'am?
Monica ma'am, poll please.
So what do you think is the impact of the teacher on the learning outcomes of the students in any school, organization? Approximate, of course. What do you think? So we are moving more towards 60%. 72, 71% teachers feel that, oh, we are in a very high impact bracket. We impact the student learning. Bhai, itna bhi high nahi hai. So could we stop taking more responses? So we have settled at 60 as per poll, but dear teachers, the direct impact of teachers on student learning outcomes as per research studies, as on date, the latest is 40%. How much would the principal have an impact? Principals का कोई impact है कि नहीं है? मतलब
Do we have the poll for that?
No, we don't have a poll for that. But I was surprised to know that the principal impact is also 25%. That is because the principal's vision, हमारे पास अशोक पांडे सर ग्रुप बैठे हैं, सर का impact 110% है. मुझे मालूम है. So pardon me for saying this कि 25% impact है सिर्फ, but the impact of the principal also comes through the CPTs and the vision in which you conduct your classroom teaching. So ultimately, no matter when we say that the child is to be engaged and the onus of teaching learning is on the child, the teacher is still the oxygen of the system. And the teacher's strategies and tools that she uses in the class have a direct impact on student learning. And when we talk about pedagogical innovations, especially with reference to blended learning, I will have to have some quick reference to the theory of constructivism, because unless we talk about it, we cannot come to what is it that we need to change and how, with the help of ICT, leading to blended learning. So just give me a moment to share a very, very small presentation. So here it is. The CBSE has been talking a lot about the theory of constructivism. And unless we as teachers understand the theory of constructivism, we will not be able to understand the pedagogical innovations in classrooms. Are you able to see the presentation?
No, ma'am. Yeah, now I can see.
Yes. So the theory of constructivism actually, CBSE is putting a lot of emphasis on this, and there's a lot of teacher training going on this particular aspect. The theory that was given by Jean Piaget and John Dewey says that the students are not passive recipients of knowledge. They are more active in the creation of meaning and knowledge. They build on their previous experiences in order to make sense of what they are learning. As they experience the world and reflect upon those experiences, they build their own representations and incorporate new information into their pre-existing knowledge. This leads to a more student-centric approach in which the student guides his own learning. So knowledge is constructed. People learn to learn as they learn. Learning is an active process. Learning is also a social activity. Learning is contextual. Knowledge is personal. Learning exists in the mind. Motivation is the key to learning. And then CBSE talks about the 5E lesson plan, which stands for engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And it's very important quickly to rush through what are these 5 segments, and then we plan our pedagogy based on these 5 segments. So we break our time period, whether it's 35, 40 minutes or a double period of 1 hour, 10 minutes, into these 5 segments. And under each segment, we carefully plan activities. If we do it using ICT, we'll end up to blended learning. So in the engage, and mind you, you can't change the order. So you have to start from engage and end at evaluate. You can't swap the segments because they are placed in that manner that it takes the child's journey of scaffolding the information based on the previous, building the new blocks over the previous blocks. So in the engage segment, the teacher would generate interest, give access to prior knowledge, connect to the past knowledge of the children, give opportunities for that, set the parameters of focus for the current lesson, and frame the idea that they're going to talk about in the lesson. In explore, the teacher must give experiences so that the child discovers new skills, probes, inquires, questions, experiences, examines his own thinking, and establishes relationships and understandings. Then comes the explain part. Mind you, explain is not to be done by the teacher. Once the child has been involved into probing, inquiring, and experiencing, let the child communicate the new understanding. The child will explain and also connect the new understanding with the previous understanding, and will also make now formal language and connect it to informal language. So if there's a new term, technical term, or a new definition to be framed, that will be also done based upon the student's explanation, felicitated by the teacher. Teacher has not gone anywhere, absent. She's there all through, guiding the child, and she's created a lesson plan which gives opportunities for all these. Then she gives the child another set of opportunities to apply that new learning to similar situation or a real world connect, and again extend that understanding and communicate that new understanding in a formal language. And towards the end, the teacher would allow opportunities for self-peer and teacher evaluation, mainly through observation, open-ended responses. The learner has to show evidence of accomplishment. Now, this is just a lesson plan, and we are not going into lesson plan details. I'll give due credit to the intellectual property of Ms. Shweta Dhawan, who is my English teacher, teaching class 10th, and this is the lesson plan for which she was groomed by CBSE only, and CBSE had taken grooming sessions on, ICT integration on constructivism and making lesson plans for that. We are not here to discuss lesson plans. We will only take up the relevant part, which I've highlighted for you in green. And we can connect it to blended learning very easily now, because CBSE went out of its way to groom teachers on how to integrate ICT, and hence it became a blended learning model. And if we go to the flipped classroom model, in the flipped classroom model where the children are given certain tasks which they do at home, but those tasks should be based on some understanding which the child already has. A totally new concept should not be given in a flipped classroom, because then the child will not be able to do it. So something that the child can easily do at home, whether through textual inputs or through ICT, and then the child comes back to the class and teacher takes the discussions forward and adds on to the learning of the child, plus the child brings back the learning and presents the learning. So that is what is flipped classroom. So if we take this lesson plan, quick 2 minutes, this is a letter from a person called Lencho to God. He wants some money, he's in dire need of money, writes a letter to God that I need about $100. And the letter goes to the post office, to the postman. The postman opens the letter, out of curiosity reads it, and out of humanity he says, okay, let me collect some money for this poor man. He is not able to collect $100, so he collects about 70 and sends the packet back to the person Lencho. Lencho opens it thinking that this has come from God. And then he writes another letter to the God saying that, God, next time when you send me the money, don't send it through the postmaster, because he's taken out some money and he's given me less than what you have sent for me. So that is the context. So in the engage segment, how you can blend it, how ICT can be used. The teacher would engage the learners using the introductory video, and the teacher has already shortlisted the link. This link can be given to the students prior to they joining the class. Then there's a survey in which the teacher wants to involve the students under the exploration segment. And then she tells the students to read the story silently. So the students can watch the video at home, can do the survey at home, can read the story silently, they can do reflective analysis of their own faith, and when they come to the class, explanation. Under explanation, the students are again divided into pairs or groups, and each pair is supposed to complete the character chart in which they write the characteristics of Lencho and Postmaster. So in the class now, they are doing this activity. If your school is physically open, you can have groups in the class. If you are still virtually connected, you can have breakout rooms and the students can do the group discussion in the breakout room, complete the character chart, come back to the class, and then some of them can present the charts in the explanation segment of the class. And in elaboration, they will be entering into a discussion where they will talk about and discuss who was right or who won. Was it Lencho's religiosity or religion faith, or it was Postmaster's humanity? And you can also make a Padlet within the class, and within the class, students can be told to put their responses in the Padlet, which is seen by everybody and can be preserved also. Padlet link, if saved, can be used as a tool. The child can reflect and go through the Padlet later also. And evaluation can be done by any means. The teacher can give, one thing I would like to say, give choice to the child. So the child has been given a choice, do only one task. So either you write a dialogue or a letter. So basically the main essence was that the ICT has been used to supplement the face-to-face classroom. Now, since we are online, so here the face-to-face interaction is again virtual classroom. But in the virtual synchronous mode, the children are coming face-to-face in real time. So that is equivalent to a traditional classroom, I would say, though not in the true sense. So teacher has given some work to the child, which the child is doing offline. Offline means outside the virtual classroom. Though the tools are online, but the child is not in real time with the teacher. And with that preparation, the child is coming to an online class in today's time and discussing what he's learned without the teacher on his own. So that is, I think, a very, very good example of blended learning. Within blended learning, it's an example of flipped classroom. And I think that is what I wanted to say. Because ma'am had given me some time, I have to stick to the time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. We really want to listen to you more and more and more. But I think until and unless we just come to that, the last segment, which is very, very important, until and unless we do the assessment, We do not
Yes.
know, be it flipped learning or the blended learning, whatever, which is more impactful and effective. I'll request Kavita ma'am to please share how we can assess the blended learning. Kavita ma'am, over to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Mukta. And obviously, I mean, this is something that you have to go beyond your summative learning. So I will just start taking certain terms which you might really enjoy. So first is a dipstick. Now, dipstick is how you use to check the oil in a car. So that way teachers can use short, quick checks virtually to make sure the students are on track both academically and emotionally. So I could have an emoji, I could have a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I could have some funny questions here and there. So that is something, or maybe I could even put a color out there and say, are you feeling green, orange, or red? Then I could have a digital journal and one pagers. So I can have a document where students could have a Google Doc or a platform like Blackboard to give me an answer. So I could have a KWL, what I know, what I want to know, and what I have learned. So something like that, or a 3-2-1. 3 things you found out, 2 things you found interesting, and 1 thing you didn't understand. So you can have these kind of things. You can even have a 1-page activity where you can have any ideas about topic or lesson written on a single page, and that could be shared. The third is something which I really enjoy, and that is the elevator pitches and tweets. So if like I have students write at the end of the lesson that 160 characters or that tweet for them, have you understood, compile everything as a tweet or an Instagram post.
Oh.
So this is something, or maybe a 60 seconds, wrap up everything in a 60 seconds. So summarize it. I could even have something called as a square, triangle, or a circle. Now, a square, triangle, or circle is, a square means I'm squared away. I know. A triangle means I'm extracting 3 important ideas from what they've learned. And a circle means I'm circulating. I'm still thinking in my mind, what is this all about? So these are the 3 things I could use, a square, triangle, or a circle. I could even make art your assessment. So I could have students drawing collages, mind maps, sketches, which can work out. I can have them create an ad. I can have them draw a comic strip. I can have a historic event explained in the form of a song or a dance. I could do a voice memo. I could do a photograph. I could create a 1-minute video. So these are 1 thing I could have. I could even go in for a peer-to-peer evaluation because that really helps to foster relationships among the students. So you can actually put them into breakout rooms and have them really working it out. So there are so many things. And finally, I could have a virtual exit ticket. So I could post a lot of questions across to them and say, what was it that I found interesting today? Today was hard because what did you understand well? What's something that's still shaky? What's something I don't realize? So you can post in so many questions like that. So these are certain ways of blended learning assessments to make it fun and interactive. The rest, you already are masters.
Vida, in one of the sessions, we had our lovely friends Meeta and Rita, those who did the rapid fire. One was questioning, the other was answering. You have done everything on your own. So you wonderful. I mean, I was taking time to just write it down. Wonderful. I think all the participants, those who are here, they would have taken good notes of the pedagogical structure, types of blended learning, and it was, I mean, I have covered, I think, 5-7 pages. So thank you so much. It's lovely. Pandey sir is here. Ashok sir, the mentor, the architect of this show. I do not have the audacity to assess these lovely ladies in 60 seconds. Ashok sir, I'm not telling you to do it in 60 seconds, but definitely
Insta post.
no. That Monica will do. Monica and Priti, they will. You have the task of get ready with the Twitter and the Insta post and make the 30 seconds video. That's the assessment. So over to Ashok sir. Please spend some time and consolidate the session. Ashok
Okay,
sir.
thank you. So, Muktaji, one word both the ladies have not used during their entire course of discussion. And perhaps they were very, very mindful of not using it because they wanted me to use that word. And you know what is that? your today's program has shown that Geeta and Kavita both are perfect blend of pedagogical leaders.
Thank you.
You really made our day, sir.
So that perfect blend is the essence of whole thing, you know. And between the two of them, let me Geeta traced the history and its evolution and how it came into the lexicon of the entire educational jargon, this blended learning. And Kavita expanding on it, that what are the different flavors of it, you know. I mean, it is something like a menu, you know, you go and choose a menu. So similarly, it is a menu, a la carte as we call it, you know. So the whole idea is what? For blending, you have to have a reference point, right? So unless you have a reference point, what do you blend that with? Okay. So let us say that the reference point was, I'm not going into the, you know, many centuries back, let us say 100 years, 150 years, a very structured, disciplined classroom, okay? And everything happening on the campus, right? So that was the reference point. And then we blended it with outside the classroom activity. And then outside class activities with it. And then we blended it outside the campus activities when children started going on excursion and things like that. So this blending, and then what happened? You had day schools, then you blended it with extended hours and you made it day boarding schools. Then you made it fully residential schools, you see? Then you made it weekend residential schools. So all these were the blendings to one reference point. But the blending in the present context that we are talking about is with the advent of computers, you see, and technology and internet. When children started learning something on their own also. So the learning in the classroom blended with the learning on the internet. Okay, so that happened, but to a great extent, all the blending that we had was with the reference point of campus, plus a very heavy dose of technology integration into it. Okay, but fast forward to 21st century, many more blendings also started happening. So we started blending the cognitive with the socio-emotional. We started blending of the teacher and parent engagement. We started a blending of assessments. You know, in 2010 only we started formative assessment and summative assessment. You get the point? So many blendings started happening. And now that this pandemic has almost forced us into doing what we call a churning of the entire process of blending. And that is the present discourse. So in this, I think today's discussion, I would only say that the blending in the context of the past and in the context of the present is nothing but expanding the opportunity for the children. So when you expand the opportunity, you are becoming more flexible. And when you're becoming more flexible, we are including more learners into it to have their opportunities to succeed. So we are becoming a more inclusive educator, and more number of children will come into it. Okay, so that is what the essence of blending is. And therefore, on one hand, when Geeta says about the pedagogy and Kavita says about the assessment, what we are doing actually, we are making assessments also plural in nature, and we are making pedagogy also plural in nature. Okay, so that nobody is left behind. Nobody is out of the realm of that classroom, whether it is in person or virtual, experience of excitement, experience of learning, love for learning, quest. Okay, so that is what this whole blending is all about. Otherwise, rest of the details as to how it is happening, how it will happen, of course, I think these two, as you use the word dynamic ladies, or shall I say dynamo ladies, already explained. So no further explanation is required. My congratulations.
Yes, sir.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ashok sir, I really loved the explanation you gave I mean, a broader perspective. Because we conducted the session, or we've shared our thoughts, limiting our thoughts to the current pandemic. But you very rightly have set in the context from where actually it started, you know. And I really appreciate this learning from you, sir, that blended learning would lead to plurals.
Yes.
So that's my takeaway from you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was your dipstick.
I really loved the word dipstick. Rather, I loved all, but dipstick was again very sweet. So with this, we have come to an end, and we need to wrap up. Thank you so much, Geeta ma'am, Kavita ma'am, and
Thank you.
I don't have words to express my respect, my gratitude for Ashok sir. Constantly, sir is there on the show. Not even a single day he has left us alone.
And that is why, you know, I'm flowing with energy and knowledge that I'm gaining from the speakers.
He has always made a point to be with us. Thank you, Ashok sir. And thank you, Kriti ma'am. Thank you, Monica ma'am. Tirelessly, these two girls are also working. I must say that immediately after 1 hour, Ashok sir again has organized a big show TED circle, and still sir is, you know, full of energy, and thank you for your blessings, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So this was the starter. Now the energy is building up.
Can I just say one more thing, Mukta?
Yeah, Kavita.
I just want to say thank all of you all, because you guys have inspired me to write my next blog, and the next blog is dedicated to you all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kavita. Thank you. Over to you, Kriti ma'am, for the formal vote of thanks.
Ma'am, Kriti ma'am is joining in just 1 minute. Due to some technical error, she is just dropping.
You can always share Monica on her behalf.
Yeah. I think, Monica, are you going to say thank you to everybody? on behalf of Kriti? Otherwise, Mukta ma'am has already said thank you to everybody.
Yes. Thank you.
And let me add my thanks also to Kriti, Monica, Mukta, Kavita ma'am, and Geeta ma'am, and to your entire
Thank you so
team.
much.
The second
entire team. Thank you so much.
Bless you all. Thank you very much.
Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geeta
Thank
ma'am.
you, Geeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kavita. Bye-bye.